Hey guys, today we're going to be reviewing the new Silent Hill chapter for Dead by Daylight. I know this is a little late, but I would just like to get my opinions out there. And before we start the video, I'm just going to say I'm not a Silent Hill fan, but I would still like to review how it has affected Dead by Daylight. The new killer is Pyramid Head, who has been dubbed the Executioner. His power is called Rites of Judgment. It allows him to drag his knife along the ground, which creates a trail of blood and wire behind him, which lasts for a limited time. You can place down trails ahead of time, as they last for a little over a minute. However, you obviously are not going to play Pyramid Head in the same manner as you play the Trapper or the Hag or Freddy Krueger. If a survivor steps on one of these trails, they will trigger the Killer Instinct effect, slow down a tiny bit, and suffer from a new status effect called the Tormented status effect. Survivors can crouch on a trail to avoid its penalties. If a survivor is downed while suffering from the Tormented status effect, they can be instantly sent to a Cage of Atonement on the opposite side of the map. Cages of Atonement are a substitute for hooks. Just like hooks, they have two phases. However, cages are worse for a number of reasons. One of the most notable differences is that the second phase requires you to do skill checks instead of struggling. Additionally, survivor perks such as Deliverance, Second Wind, and Decisive Strike do not work on cages. If a survivor is rescued from a cage, the Tormented status effect will be removed. If a survivor is tormented and on their last hook or cage, they can be instantly executed. What's nice is that the execution animation is actually different from the animation for Pyramid Head's Mori. And finally, Pyramid Head can unleash a wave that damages survivors from afar. In order to access this ability, he has to be creating a trail. The wave can also go through walls. These weird ritual symbol thingies will appear in the wave's path a split second before the wave unleashes. So that's the new killer's power, but what do I think of it? Well, the sheer number of mechanics he has is very impressive. All of these mechanics are completely original, and none of them feel similar to a killer that already exists. Pyramid Head's power is also very well themed, if that makes any sense. And when I play as survivors, there's definitely counterplay available for me. Now, I'd hate to see him get nerfed into the ground, but I think a small nerf wouldn't hurt because he is a little powerful. So, here's what I would do. So, my favorite part about Pyramid Head is probably his wave ability, but I've seen people run perks like I'm all ears to get really cheeky hits. So what I do is make it so that you can't see auras while he's using his power, kind of similar to how the spirit works right now. And I'd also make the wind-up time a tiny bit longer, but that's it. Okay, I don't want to see any heavy nerfs because he's in a pretty good spot right now. And just because he counters Decisive Strike doesn't mean he's overpowered, okay? He's in a good spot right now, just those are the changes I think they should make. Now let's review Pyramid Head's teachable perks. His first perk is Forced Penance. This perk makes it so that survivors who take a protection hit suffer from the broken status effect. To be honest, this perk is really bad. Protection hits are not something you see survivors performing in your typical match. Even if this perk does come into play, it doesn't really do anything. Allow me to explain. So if this perk activates, you have two choices. Chase the broken survivor, or don't chase them. If you do chase them, they won't be able to heal anyway because they're being chased. And if you don't chase them, well then what's the point? How would I buff this perk? You could do two things. Make the effect last longer, or apply a different status effect. And even if you did that, it wouldn't be that good, but at least it would do something. Pyramid Head's second perk is Trail of Torment. This perk makes you undetectable for a limited time after kicking a generator. The generator you kicked is highlighted in yellow. My question is, Why would you reveal your general location if you're trying to be stealthy? Luckily, this perk is not as bad as people say it is. It's not the best, but it does its job. It helps sneak up on survivors, and it always comes into play at least a few times every round. To make it more powerful, I would get rid of the part where it highlights the generator. I would also make this effect apply to all breakables and not just generators. Pyramid Head's last perk is Deathbound. This perk causes a survivor to scream and reveal their location if they heal another survivor far away from the killer. If the two survivors wander too far away from each other, they will suffer from the Oblivious status effect. This is the only one of Pyramid Head's perks that I think people are going to start running in their builds. It's a decent perk that allows you to round up survivors and put them at a disadvantage. Now let's discuss the new survivor, Cheryl Mason. Before we discuss her teachable perks, I want to bring up one of the most frequent complaints about this chapter, which is, why Cheryl and not James? Well, think about it this way. The map is from Silent Hill 1, the killer is from Silent Hill 2, and the survivor is from Silent Hill 3. And with legendary skins coming to the game, we're probably going to get James anyway, so it's just really not worth complaining about. But anyway, now let's discuss her teachable perks. Her first perk is Soul Guard. This perk grants you the endurance status effect a few seconds after recovering from the dying state. This sounds good, but the situation you have to be in order for this perk to activate is hyper-specific. Luckily, this perk also grants another effect. If you are cursed by a hex, you can fully recover from the dying state. Basically no mither, but you don't have the disadvantage of being injured. Unfortunately, this perk won't come into play every round because killers don't always bring hex perks. Cheryl's second perk is Blood Pact. This perk allows you and the Obsession to see each other's auras if one of you is injured. After healing, you gain a small speed boost. Not the worst perk, but completely outclassed by other perks. What also sucks is if you are the Obsession, this perk deactivates completely. Finally, let's move on to Cheryl's last perk, which is called Repressed Alliance. After spending some time repairing generators, you can call upon the entity to block it off for a limited time. This also reveals the aura of the generator to all survivors. This perk comes into play a lot more than you think. It also helps counter the triple gen strat, which is amazing. Blocking generators also stops generator regression, which is something I never really understood until now. Again, not a bad perk, but I don't think people are going to run it in their builds. To conclude, while most of these perks are bad, I have to give credit where it's due. I like how Cheryl uses hex totems and the entity to her own advantage. It's very creative and reflects the character very well. Finally, let's talk about the new map, Midwich Elementary School. This map is loaded with tons of cool Easter eggs. And on top of that, there's like gore and stuff everywhere. So while it's not the best map, it's definitely the scariest. And while the loops are kind of underwhelming, there are some powerful palettes on this map. To conclude, this chapter was pretty good. It's clear that the developers thought ahead when they were making this chapter. While the killer and the new map are very good, most of the perks are pretty bad and need some attention. But yeah, that's my review. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.